And we are live. Hello and welcome to Developer Insights. I'm David.
And I'm Justin.
And together we are the leads on game development and design here at Codename.
Well, not only that, but we're also the founders of Codename.
And we're going to be your hosts for this episode and for every episode.
Unless we're not.
Been true so far.
Today is our 33rd episode.
And as a special treat, we are coming to you live.
Wait, aren't we always live? I mean, if we weren't live, how would we collect the questions?
We don't need to anymore. I fed all the previous questions into an AI prediction model. And as long as it doesn't take over my computer, the algorithm should now be able to ask us all the questions that we need.
That doesn't really make any sense. It sounds like a lot more work when we already have an audience that asks perfectly good questions.
Look, I'm just trying to justify why the date on the overlay is wrong sometimes. Okay, plus we also got research and development funding for it, so it's all good.
Okay, well, fair enough. I mean, I hope you got the overlay right this week.
Shoot.
It says February. Anyway, we are here to answer your development and design questions about Idle Champions.
It doesn't say February. What are you talking about? At any rate, if you don't ask any questions, you'll have to suffer through Justin's one-man reenactment of his brand new.
Oh, I messed up the script there.
Brand new one-man play, Coughing the Cough-tastrophe.
That's correct. Yeah, I've been under the weather for the past week or so. That's why there was no stream last week. And a major part of it has been coughing. Lots and lots of coughing. I've written a script, and I'm planning on selling the rights to Hollywood any day now.
I think that's a lot harder than you might think it is. You're not going to cough a lot on stream this week, are you?
I mean, no promises. I've got a mute button on my headset here at home, so I will make liberal use of that if I start to cough. But I'm hoping that my body will just be so distracted by answering all the great questions that it'll forget about coughing for an hour or so.
You mean the AI-generated questions?
Oh, yes, the AI-generated questions.
Anyway.
And that's the reason we're not wearing green, too. It's because it's not St. Patrick's Day when we're recording this, right?
Listen, we won't tell them you thought Monday was St. Patrick's Day.
It is St. Patrick's Day in Newfoundland and Labrador, according to Google.
And in the rest of the world, it's just Pie Day. I hope everyone had pie on Monday. Anyway, as always, we have pulled some questions from the previous show that we didn't get to, and we'll start answering some of those while we wait for new questions to come in. And of course, I have a few updates on items that have been tagged to be looked at and fixed and or additions, and we'll start by taking a look at those. Maybe I should reorder how that's presented, actually, seeing as we do that first every time.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there was 4 items that we added to the list from the previous show, and those 4 items were adding a hotkey adding a hotkey view on the main menu. So it was pointed out that the only way you can see the hotkeys in game is through the little H icon that you can then hover over if you see it down there at the bottom. And it was requested that maybe it'd be useful for new players that if there was actually a dedicated section on the main menu that people could look at for hotkeys. So that has been added to the list. We are still looking into getting a fix in for Steam achievements for transferred WebGL accounts. I understand there are a few accounts where that wasn't set up, and so I know it's on Peter's radar. We did want to add in the ability to sort the formations alphabetically on the Modron automation selection screen. So that's when you're doing your automation setup, those 3 automations where you drop down for selecting a formation. It came to our attention that was just in order of creation, just ID order. So having an alphabetical sort on that would be nice. As for items that were on the list and are still on the list from last time, we are still looking to put in a preview on the formation an indicator on the formation preview that shows which slot is blocked by a champion in a variant that has a champion block. We're still going to get that feat for Briv for stopping at jumping at various areas. More details on the multi-party display so that it shows the target area. So if you're just bringing up the multi-party display, you can see what that particular adventure's target was and if or not it has been reached. We did want to make some improvements to the flow of the OpenXMore chests. And there's some concern that the checking the on formation circles always showing doesn't always show that the formation circles are always on. So that should be looked at. And we do want to add a hotkey for when you hold the hotkey down, it shows the monster health details as if you were hovering that monster with the mouse. I did get an update from Peter on some of that, and a number of these items, and I'm not going to go through and specify which ones, are targeting for April 9th. So they are getting looked at, but they're a couple of weeks out.
And that is an awfully specific date.
That's true.
Isn't April
Targeting
9th a Friday or a Saturday as well? It is a Saturday. Well,
maybe
kudos to Peter for working on the 9th. I know 8th is a build block day, so that would
that's
make
probably
more
the
sense.
right day.
Yeah.
Anyway, those are targeted for that date. That doesn't mean that they will get in. That just means that's the goal for those items. And I know that some of these, the fixes that get requested don't end up on the top of the priority list, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Moving into questions, though.
Let's just go down a couple of questions here from last episode. This first one I'm going to ask you because you're the one who put it in here. This was a question from our previous show from Gentle Swee, who asked, will mounts ever be introduced? I feel like that's a glitch in your AI. There's no mounts in this game. Just for a different, did you feed in questions from a different game as well?
I'll have to check. I actually thought that was an interesting question because I thought mounts would actually be a pretty cool thing to be able to add in. But my gut feeling on this, which sort of leans into the next question, is that they'd probably be they'd be too large to fit in the formation. We'd have to have some zoomed out formation where everyone can have a mount, but
the formation is already extremely cluttered with stuff and champions and overlays and effects, and that would definitely be a challenge, especially in any sort of generic type system. Like we could probably do skins or outfits for champions where they're riding a mount around. But
chat's pointing out that the nerds have a minecart, which is like a mount.
That's true. Yeah, it'd be tough to fit in. I think from a graphic perspective more than anything else. And then there's sort of the question of what do mounts do, and how does that system designed, and what are they for?
They look cool.
Is it like maybe every mount? I'm just spitballing here. Every mount has its own set of formation abilities. So instead of having like two parties with two separate formations, you're just layering two formations on top of each other with the mounts in each slot.
That's not a bad idea, actually. You have layered formations, then you actually have abilities that go up. Like we've added layers, a bunch of different adjacencies. Yeah,
it's like some sort of Idle Champions
3D
cake or parfait or onion.
It's a 3D version of Idle Champions, 3D formations.
Like 3D chess from like Star Trek: The Next Generation. It's like, anyway.
Yeah, I think they played that a lot more in the original series, but something like that. Yep.
All right. Yeah. Speaking of, the next question is like you said, very related to this. It's from Foolish Genius 89, who says, "Can a Centaur champion fit on screen, or would they be too large?"
Yeah, it goes into the same answer. It's broadly speaking, they would be too large unless we made them really not to scale.
Yeah. And we've thought about like doing champions that take up multiple formation slots and stuff like that. But every time that we kind of start to inch down that road, Peter and the dev team show up at my house with baseball bats, and they're like, "Don't you frickin' dare!" So
they're not like, "Hey, we're having a game down at the park. You want to join us?"
Well, maybe that's what they're gonna say. I don't open the door. I'm scared. They got baseball bats, man. They're gonna hurt me. Anyway, yeah, I think doing really big champions is a big challenge. I think even some of the bigger champions we have, like Kroll and Grama, are a challenge in the formation just because they take up so much space, and they block a bunch of stuff from behind them. So that's a challenge.
Yep. Yeah, and the issue with like the 2-slot is that the slots actually aren't always aligned. So there's not always a slot directly behind or directly beside, so it would be really awkward to place something that took up 2 slots.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, next question is related to something I already mentioned. That is, and this question from Alpha Kroll is: are there any updates on the Briv feats?
Yeah, so this is a good question. We've actually been talking internally about Briv and Human and Jim for a little while. And what we're going to do with those champions in terms of just how incredibly OP they are. So I think some of the stuff that we're thinking about, obviously, we're still thinking about these Briv feats and putting in feats that essentially cap Briv's jump, so that you can, still get item levels and still level that up, but not be in a situation where you've got like a you know a 50% chance to do 3 skips and 100% chance to do 2 skips, and you really always just want to do 2 because you're trying to like get through certain areas or skip bosses or whatever. Some of the other things we're thinking about is just some adjustments to Briv, um, in addition to adding those feats. Maybe some stuff. I'm trying to figure out how to structure this discussion, but yeah, some stuff that makes it so Briv isn't quite so game breaking and cheesy on new variants. So, for example, we put a lot of effort into cool bosses, and cool encounters in adventures and variants in the campaigns, and it's a real bummer when Briv just jumps over them and you completely ignore bosses. It really takes out a major part of the game. So one of the things we are considering is making it so you can only skip bosses in free play, which would mean you have to defeat Tiamat in the final adventure of Avernus, instead of just jumping over her and never actually engaging with her. And I think it leaves open his ability to jump over bosses and whatnot in free play. And so if you're looking to gem farm or do any sort of speed running in free play, then that's fine. But we wouldn't want you to be able to jump over champions or bosses in regular adventures. We want you to have to actually defeat those bosses. Like we set up those bosses to be a challenge. And so that's one thing we're thinking about with Briv. We're also looking at Briv's self-healing. Not sure if we're going to take any action there. And then we're also looking at Human and Jim. For Jim, we haven't come to a full conclusion on that, but we're looking at maybe nerfing his polymorph a little bit. And right now, I think it polymorphs and it creates like a 5 health chicken or something like that. We're looking at it just potentially, instead of being a 5 health chicken, being a chicken with a very low percentage of the health of the original monster instead. So, maybe like 0.1% or 0.01% or something like that. So, Jim can potentially get you another 25 or 50 areas, but won't get you to area 2000 just by killing chickens, which seems kind of counter to the game. And then for Human's big issue is he combos with Jim quite well. If you get him his item levels high enough, you can get your number of enemies you have to kill down to 1, and that's it's troubling from a game design perspective. It's also troubling from a server perspective. We spent a bunch of time watching the servers the last little while, and certain speed strategies have started to negatively affect the servers. Let's say that. So one of the things we're looking at that's not a direct nerf of Human, but just a sort of general change overall, is to cap out the quest reduction effect, to only be able to reduce quest requirements by about 80% rather than essentially 96% like they can now. So that would slow things down a little bit without fully trivializing the levels and stuff that you've put into Human and to other champions. So that's some of the stuff that we're looking at. There may be some other stuff, and none of that stuff is actually fully locked in place. But some of the stuff we're looking at in terms of just adjusting some of Briv and Jimothy stuff. So yeah, Yeah, I
Wow.
think that answers that question as
The
well as
question
numerous other
was
questions.
literally just any update on the Briv feed. So
I
we might
may
have
have,
gone a
I
little.
may, you know what I may have done? I may have Control F through the question doc, searched for the last question about Briv, pulled it up with the intention of giving that whole spiel as a response to that question.
You're just playing out your inner politician and answering the question you wanted them to ask you.
That's correct. I was just emailing with Justin the other day because we all have all Justins,
I
of
see.
course, have it. We've got a group where we all chat, and he was saying that, and then Bieber chimed in and he was like, blah blah blah. I was like, Bieber, go away. I'm talking to Trudeau.
Drugs are bad. Anyway, a positive note though, it does seem like the chat seems to think that's reasonable. Everything you were talking about there, so good there because you didn't want to mob with pitchforks.
Nope. Already got that one with baseball bats outside. So one with baseball bats, one with pitchforks. It's like I have to move.
They just want a pickup game. I don't know what game you play with pitchforks though. Anyway, next question here is also from Alpha Crow.
Yeah.
And Alpha Crow asks, does different champs and cores speed buffs stack additively or multiplicatively? Like 50% drop increase from speed core and 50% drop from human sum up to 100 or to 75? Or does each give a separate 50% chance to double the drop?
Yeah, so for the most part, and people are saying I'm a little quiet, so I can both try to speak up a little bit and yell. Maybe you can turn me up just a bit because I don't want to blow out my already destroyed voice. So yeah, for the most part, speed effects on separate champions will stack multiplicatively. Unless there is a reason for them to be stacking additively, like it doesn't make sense for them to stack multiplicatively. For the most part, most stuff in the game stacks multiplicatively. It doesn't make sense to do a lot of additive stuff, especially when there's decreases to things. If you do like a 50% decrease to something and then you do another 50% decrease to something, that would decrease that thing to 0 if you do it additively. So, for example, effects that decrease monster health all scale or all apply multiplicatively. So if you have a 50% reduction and then another 50% reduction, they'll be down to 25% health instead of 0% health. Otherwise, the monsters would just disappear before they came on screen, which wouldn't be very fun. So for the most part, everything stacks multiplicatively unless it is specifically called out that it stacks additively. So hopefully that answers that question.
All right. Bumped up your volume just a bit, so hopefully that covered that.
Thank you. And then the next question here from our previous show is from JDog2773, and they are asking, can we get the Snowball click damage skin in the gem store?
We're gonna do that, right? Like at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I think hopefully soon.
I swear I saw a click damage skin like on dev in the store. So I think it's coming soon.
Yeah, I think that should be soon. I think it'll be in the gem store. I think that'll be an interesting store update to add the Snowball click damage skin to the gem store.
Yeah, soon enough.
There we go. Those are all the questions from last week.
Now onto the generated ones.
Now onto the auto-generated questions from this week. Okay, the first question is from JDog2773, and clearly your AI knows what day it's pretending to be, because their question is, where is your green? I don't have any green. I don't even have any green in the room. I mean, the tavern, sorry. The tavern that I'm in.
Yeah,
you gonna put on some green tonight, Dave? And
I was gonna have a green beer, but I don't know about.
I think we're probably gonna make like some green margaritas or something tonight.
No, you're sick.
They're already mostly green, but
yeah, I'm not asking. This screen is green though, right? It's just you're at home.
No, not here.
Virtual...
I'm in my basement, so it's actually very white. If I turn off my let's see, here we go. Choose virtual background. Bonk. It's that. Back to that. There you go. There's a little peek behind the curtain. It's not green. If I was in the office, it would be green because we have an amazing actual green screen, but not here. Let us move on to the next question.
All right. Science Guy 3.1415. I guess I added the point. Anyway, asks, can we get an option to rerun completed variants without the associated rewards, of course? Some people are apparently already doing it with a script or mod, so obviously the game supports it. Just the UI doesn't allow it. It's an easy fix, am I right? It's never that easy.
Yeah, so I mean, yes, the game does technically allow it. It's actually kind of a bug that some people were doing it with scripts to be able to get in, because the game client itself doesn't let you redo a completed variant, but some of the server side stuff doesn't do the checks that it should be doing. We will likely fix that so that you are not able to get onto those adventures and variants that you've already done. And it's kind of a tough question because it's more of a design choice than an actual there's a technical reason for it. And it's just a design choice that we kind of let you do them once, and then you can do them again with patrons and whatnot. And part of it is we want to make sure that you can complete something and it's completed, and there's like a check mark there. And it could be confusing if you go to a variant that you've completed and it's unclear in some way that you've completed again. Making it so you just can't start it again makes it very, very clear that you have completed it. There are also some issues just with some of the mechanics we do in variants, and we don't necessarily want those mechanics to be something that you can just grind on. Now, some people have a very good point of some players who are clever and know what's coming up will just not complete those variants on purpose, and then they can redo the variants as long as they don't get to the target area. That's not really behavior that we want to encourage. And the whole reason that free play exists is so you can replay the adventure as much as you want, just not with any mechanics that we might have in that might be a little bit game breaking or exploitable. So that's kind of the answer to that question. It's like I said, there's no technical reason we don't allow it. It's just a design choice that we don't want to allow. Let's see. The next question here is for you, Mr. David. It is from Fennec with 3 N's, who say, when will we get the ARM 64/Mac OS version on Steam? Since you already got the one running on ARM 64/iOS, it should not be hard, right?
So the second part of that is, I think, it probably wouldn't be that difficult. The problem is finding the time to get to that. I know Peter did take a quick pass on that initially, sort of after it came out that was going to be an option available for us. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out to be straightforward, and because we actually don't have a what is the damn thing called? This is the ARM 64 version, but what's the chip? The M1 chip. We don't have an M1 Mac here currently, and until we get one, we probably won't be able to test that properly. So it's not a priority right now, but it is definitely something we were going to get to eventually. Cool.
I went and highlighted a couple of questions before that one. Sorry.
Nevertheless,
I was so focused on answering the other questions.
I'm going to get you to answer 10, and then we can hop back over those.
Okay.
I like this question because I know we had discussed this before. In fact, I think this was the initial design or something close to it.
Yeah. Go ahead and ask it.
But Lizard Tastes Good asks, would it be possible to make it so that you can spend 6 time gate pieces during an event to unlock a retired champion's free play and variants?
Yeah, that's a very good point. This was our first pass of year 4 events or year 3 events. Did we do this in year 3? I think we did it in year 3.
Yeah,
year 3 we the first 2 events, High Harvest Tide and Feast of the Moon, we had it set up so you had access to the latest 2 champions, and then you could spend literally 6 time gate pieces to unlock the other ones from the event. And that was our initial plan moving forward. So like, year 5 would come around, you'd get year 5 and year 4 champion, and then you could spend 6 time gate pieces to unlock year 3, 2, and 1's free plays and variants during that event. And unfortunately, the feedback we got from that was very, very negative, for good reason. I mean, there were some very good points there where, if we do that, there's going to be this kind of assumption that you can get 6 time gate pieces for every single event, or in the case of like a year 5 event, if we still had that, you'd have to get 18 time gate pieces to get all 3 of the sort of locked champions. And that, doesn't really scale very well with the rate at which we're giving out time gate pieces. So we ended up ditching that and just going to something that was a little bit more straightforward during year 4. And we're relatively happy with how it's working out. I would like it to be more obvious what the other champions are from an event, and we've talked about having maybe a discount on those champions, time gates during the event or around the event. We haven't gotten around to looking into that anymore, aside from it just being something that would be nice. So yeah, that's sort of that's the answer to that question. We tried it, and there were lots of pitchforks.
Today's episode brought to you by
Acme pitchforks.
Okay.
You just need to pitch a fork. All right, this is why I'm in development and not advertising.
I haven't really seen an advertisement for a pitchfork, honestly, but
well, we don't live in farm country.
Next question here is from Surreal1. And Surreal1 asks, any chance of an alert for full group in trials or a new trial available, like new challenge available?
Yeah, these are, this is one of the things that's in our list for trials updates. And we have made a little bit of progress on that, in that we have fully spec'd out our trials updates, and I have gone through and split them into a bunch of different potential buckets. If we don't have time to do everything at once, that we will be able to do some of it at a time.
Is that how updates are delivered?
In buckets?
In buckets.
Yes, well, buckets, and then you've got the pitchforks, and it's all basically it's all farm equipment, all the way down. So yeah, that is something we want to do, and the when that will come out is still TBD.
Okay. Moving on to the next question then, and that is from JDog2773. And they would like to know, and I hope this doesn't devolve into an update on 16 more champions, but is there any update on Mehen?
Yes, I believe the Mehen fixes, I think they're in the Switch build that just went live, so we might be able to turn that back on. I can check in with Peter right now and get an update on this in a couple of minutes. So yes, I will type in a thing into our company chat and figure this out.
All right. Well, while we're waiting on that,
I'll just smile at the camera while I type.
Apparently, it's all farm equipment is the most Canadian sentence that SailNet has ever heard in a while.
Is that true?
Oh, okay. It feels like more like, an American Midwest, Anyway, next question here is from, Mini Lionar. Lanar. Wow, haven't screwed up a name in a while. Would it be possible to have certain cooldowns or character abilities, like Baelos Jinj stacks or Omen's contractual obligation, on the main screen to better time formation or formation character switches?
Yes. So I highlighted this question because I think it's a good idea. There's some cooldowns will probably make sense for this. Really, any cooldowns that are kind of over 10 or 15 seconds. I wouldn't necessarily want to do this for things that are like 5 seconds. or if we did, we'd have to find some way to just really do it really well. Otherwise, the whole screen would just be filled with cooldown notifications of some sort. So I think it's a cool idea to know. Obviously, we want to let you guys know as much as possible what's going on in the game, and so putting some of that stuff onto the screen, I think, would be a good idea. It's just a matter of how we do it, so we don't end up like a modded World of Warcraft Raiders screen, where you've got like a million UI elements, and then you can kind of see what's going on in this little tiny window in the middle. So yeah, that's kind of where we would go with that, or what we want to think about before we go in that direction. I did get an answer about the Mahen spec fix, and it looks like it didn't make it into the last build lock. There's a bit of complexity there, which makes sense because it's a wacky ability. Just for people who aren't aware of what the Mahen spec is, there was a new spec added a couple of patches ago that was for Mahen that basically let, if you chose that specialization, then you could use Farida and Havilar, who are Mahen's adopted children. You could use those two champions in any adventure that Mahen was able to be used in, which is really cool, a very cool effect. But it turns out it's a little bit more complex to implement than we initially thought it was, and so it was slightly broken in a couple of situations. So we had to pull that spec out right after it went out, and it looks like it's going to be in that same April 8th build lock that Dave was referring to earlier. So coming out soonish, couple of weeks. And I see you, Real Bunny Beast, as a former. He says, as a former healer in WoW raids, I feel attacked about my UI. I was also a healer in WoW raids, so I'm attacking myself in this case. You're not really, when you're a healer in a WoW raid, you're not really focused really on anything that's going on except hoping you're not standing in fire and watching the little bars go down.
Making them go back up, of course.
Yeah, if I feel like it.
They're on your good side.
They're on my good side. If they haven't been threatening me with pitchforks lately,
or baseball bats,
they get a heal. Yes.
Okay. Next question. What am I looking at here? I don't know which one I want to ask. Oh, well, we'll just do them both.
Pick a question. Any
From
question.
Whipped Quasin. Whipped Quasin. That's what we're going with. I've noticed a bug that happens if you swap Briv with another champ. Just as he is about to jump, the other champ jumps instead. Hilarious.
That sounds like a feature.
Yeah, I agree.
No. Yeah, that does sound like a bug.
We wouldn't want
sounds hilarious.
We wouldn't want to fix that, would we? That feels like something that would just fix the fun out of it.
Yeah.
I'm kind of inclined to just leave that.
I would leave that as a low priority fix. Yeah. It's like, if we manage to fix literally everything else in the game and we get my collections dialogue implemented, then we can fix that.
Yeah.
Which is just a cheeky way of saying it will never be done.
Yeah. All right. Here's another question. This one is from Maniac Clown, and they ask, or they say /ask. I posted this for Trevor in the Reddit Q&A, but could we please get a display of your accumulated... Oh, you got to move your cursor, Justin. I can't read through that.
I'm sorry.
Favor, raw number, and/or percentage increase for your current run that doesn't require hovering over a button. Say perhaps putting it under your gold find bonus.
That is an interesting request. I mean, I can see why you'd want to kind of see that at a glance. I'm not sure that it's worth the real estate of putting it directly onto the screen. As we were kind of talking about earlier when we were talking about cooldowns, like we don't want to make the make the screen all covered in numbers and bars and whatnot. And you're saying there in chat there, the idea is that if you're farming favor, it's a pain to keep your mouse over a button. I mean, I guess the question is there a specific amount of favor that you're trying to farm to before you want to like leave, and are you farming it really that quickly that checking it every couple of minutes isn't just as effective? I guess I'm trying to figure out the use case in terms of whether or not this would be worth the time to do. And my initial feeling on it is that hovering over the thing isn't necessarily the end of the world if it needs to be done. If it's one of those things where you want to be resetting at a specific point, then you're probably not doing much else with your mouse that you couldn't keep it there. You're saying the button hover seems like it doesn't always update reliably if you keep hovering. That's certainly something we can look at. If the tooltip isn't updating as you're earning gold, then I think that would be something we could look at updating.
I'm not even sure if that tooltip does update if you're hovering it.
It may very well not. I would be. I think it's. I mean, we have to spend a little bit of effort to have tooltips update on the fly, right? So
yeah, it's a totally different thing
into the system. Yeah.
Yeah, because when you hover over a tooltip, you can make a request to get that if you're to get that data, and if you're just hovering it there, it either has to be listening to an event that's coming in from somewhere else, or sort of be on a timer to update on a regular interval. So often numbers like that we don't automatically add in code to update those when you're hovering it, depending on what the context is. So it's entirely possible that one's not hooked up to update.
Yeah, I don't think that'd be too bad to hook up though. I mean, like one of the reasons we don't do that is because some of that data can be really hard to calculate, right? Like it can take a long time, and you can literally like reduce your frame rate if we were updating it on like a frame type thing. But that one seems like a pretty straightforward calculation. So
yeah, the chat is saying that it does update, just not reliably. So it's definitely changing when they've got their cursor hovering it, but it's not.
It is odd.
That's peculiar for sure.
It's odd that it would be halfway.
Yeah, it is odd that it would be halfway.
Anyway, let's move on to the next question.
Sure. Next question from Alpha Kroll is: could you have a redesign, rebalance, buff a champ stream similar to the create a champ stream you did or had on the anniversary stream? It would be interesting to see devs and chat discuss and go through what it takes to update a champion.
Yeah, that's an interesting kind of request. So I think we did that in the Extra Life stream.
I think so.
I did a create a champion stream in the waning hours of the morning. Well, I guess.
Just in the early morning, like 8 o'clock?
When I came back from sleeping at 8 a.m. And that was really fun. I think the hour that I allocated for that was not necessarily enough to fully design a champion. Shocker, because we take many more hours than that to do it in the real world. But yeah, I mean, if it's something that players are interested in, sort of seeing how we think through that stuff, it's we could think about doing something like that. Maybe I could drag Pete onto the stream, and not to be confused with Peter, but Pete is my partner in crime in terms of champion design. He's taking a lot of the heavy lifting on that these days, and he's got lots of fun plans for rebalancing champions as well. We were just looking at Sergeant Knox this morning as a potential rebalance target. Because their event is coming up soonish, and might be fun to give them a little boost, because nobody plays with Sergeant Knox, which I found very confusing, because Sergeant Knox is awesome and synergizes so well with Celeste and Makos. But so yeah, I mean, I think that's doing a stream like that would be interesting.
Agreed.
For us as well. Yeah.
Okay, next question from Kuvu Plan. Trials of Mount Tiamat Plains Zone 10 boss. It normally does 20% damage to the whole party, but on day 2 and onwards, it can do 100%. Is this intended, or will it be adjusted at some point?
Yeah, so this is if you get the day 2 restriction that monsters do 400% more DPS. It does not it does not mesh well with this boss, and it's actually because I think we reused a boss from a different adventure who obviously didn't have there wasn't the added restriction of bosses do more damage. So I think the plan for that one is to change that boss or just clone that boss and adjust the ability so it doesn't do 20% damage, but instead does some sort of flat amount, and that way you can get around that with potions and tank level ups and whatnot. So that is the plan for that. It is a bug. It's not intended, and it will be adjusted at some point. Okay, next question from Optimus SE. They ask, is there any plans to update champion profile pictures with the console interface to change depending on what skin they're using?
Yeah, so the console portraits, which are specifically done as a second piece of art, relative to the Steam interface ones, if you're not using the console portraits, which of course is an option in the settings, and the Steam ones, or the default interface ones, the PC interface ones, I don't know what I'm saying. Anyway, the other ones, the non-console ones, are just a close-up capture of the character art. And so when we do a skin, we automatically have that art available. But to do the console portrait version, that's actually another piece of art, and it takes an artist, another 8 to 10 hours to do that up. And so we have, in general, not been doing them for skins because of that extra art time that goes into them. And at this point, because we have just so many of them, catching up on that would be an inordinate amount of art, and it would sort of slow progress on all of that going forward. So we've decided not to put in console versions, the specific art versions of the skins, at least not at this time.
Cool. Next question. Speaking of scale, this is probably one that you want to ask.
Yeah, that's right. This is
so this is not really a design question. This is an art question. We got to get some artists on here.
Is that what that is? I thought this was a literally unplayable question. OG17 would like to know, speaking of scale, is Tatiana intended? Her bio 7 foot, while Desmond is 5'10", but he's taller in game. This does actually...
This does sound like something that... we are normally aware of. I think we normally do look at this stuff. I'm not sure how Tatiana snuck through. Maybe she was slouching in all the reference pictures. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm gonna pass that on to the artists and see what they say.
Yeah, it really does seem like
toss that into the art chat.
Like something art should be on top of. 7 feet. It's tall. All right. Next question here.
With their excuses.
For you, Justin, is from JDoc2773, asking, can we get consistent tags throughout the game for neutral buffs, being G/E, C/L, or both?
Yeah, good or evil, chaotic or lawful, or both. This is a great question. This is something that we have tried to be more aware of lately, and we are trying to kind of work our way back through our bad design and fix it up. So the idea is that moving forward, it'll always be explicit which way a neutral buff is, or debuff or restriction or whatever is referring, and we want to make sure that is visible, or as visible as possible, in all cases. So it's something we're working on.
Yeah. Timnos in the chat says, while throwing the artists on the bonfire. To be fair, we do not throw artists on bonfires anymore. There was an environmental impact study.
Yeah. We ran out of pitchforks.
I'm not sure I was going with that.
I don't know either. Poor artists.
They just don't burn very well.
And none of them are witches. Okay. Wait, are the witches the ones that do burn or don't burn? I can't remember.
That's the test is if they float, I think.
If they float? If they are the weight of a duck?
Yeah.
Okay. So many people are not going to really understand what we're talking about.
It's okay. I'm blaming it on the cold medication you've been taking.
Okay, next question is from Vavkas, who says, we have familiars pressing single ultimates, familiars roaming ultimate bar pressing random ultimates, familiars leveling single heroes, but we are missing familiars roaming the hero bar leveling random heroes. Can you add a missing bar for familiars to work and have fun?
Yeah, so this is a question that we get asked on a semi-regular basis, and it's because it would certainly be it would. You'd go one familiar would go a very long way in this setup, and I think the main sort of our answer previously on this has been that this would really just be OP from a familiar standpoint. If we let the familiar, because one familiar could level up all the heroes, so just sort of a balance factor, and it would just be too much for one familiar. It's too much power for one familiar, so that's why that's not a thing that we've done. Next question from Bruce Flash. Any plans of adding a third feat slot to champions? And we've got a lot of great feats, but only 2 spots.
Yeah, so I think down the road we will definitely add additional feat slots. We've seen a lot of good suggestions about feat slots lately. And I think I spoke about feats in the last episode where we were kind of from a design side, I'm a little bit disappointed with how the feats have been working out, and they're just not effective enough. When you assign a new feat, it doesn't have enough of an effect in the game to really justify spending a lot of time thinking about what feats to use. So one of the things we're looking at is making the feats more effective. So bumping up the percentages so that which feats you choose really does have an impact on how far you can get potentially. And then, adding additional feat slots could be something that kind of comes along with that if we want to let you choose more power. So yeah, that's something that will probably happen down the road.
Now, a feat slot, that's just like a boot, right?
A feat slot is a boot, yeah, a pair of boots or a shoe, some sort of farming boot.
And so 2 is kind of the appropriate number, right?
Yeah.
That's why you don't have 3, because it makes it harder to walk.
Yes, it'd be, okay.
Moving on, next question here. We're running out of highlighted questions. We're going to have to work on this. Next question here is from Real Verge. Since D&D is owned and licensed by Wizards of the Coast, which is Hasbro, will there ever be crossover characters, say a Planeswalker from Magic? I fully understand wanting to keep Idle Champions pure to D&D lore, but I just had to ask.
Yeah, so I mean, the closest we've kind of come to this is Eliwick. Eliwick is technically a Magic card, so that was kind of a crossover from Magic. They're not technically, I guess, a Planeswalker, but I guess they're close-ish. So there is a crossover there. We also did the Nerds, obviously, as a crossover. That's not really a Hasbro thing, but it was an advertising thing that Hasbro was doing with Nerds. I think we're open to it as long as Wizards is kind of open to it. I think we are open to doing some fun stuff in the game. We like to keep it be kind of fast and loose with the rules. Yeah. So I think we would be willing to do that kind of stuff if the opportunity arose. Next question here. There's some people in chat saying Eliwick is definitely a Planeswalker. And technically it's not an official wiki, but I'm on the Magic the Gathering wiki. And the description of Eliwick is a green aligned gnome bard from the Forgotten Realms, featured in the blah blah blah. Though depicted on a Planeswalker card, Eliwick is not a Planeswalker within Magic lore. So I will let you debate that with the people who wrote the Magic the Gathering wiki.
Are you sure?
I thought she was a Planeswalker too, to be honest. And I went and looked it up while I was when I saw this question coming in. And yeah, maybe it's an issue with like her being a Dungeons and Dragons character, and so technically they can't be Planeswalker, but it was like I don't know. I don't know. Don't blame me, man. I'm just the messenger.
I don't know. I'm actually just looking at what we wrote for the spotlight.
Did we say she was a Planeswalker?
It says, thanks to a lucky draw from the notorious deck of many things. Summer.
Where's live?
Yep.
Live streaming us reading through. blogs
it
and
says
wikis.
it says that she's dazzled beings across many planes, including royalty from the Feywild, but it doesn't specifically.
She's a lowercase p planeswalker.
It definitely
She
has
walks
gone between the planes,
but she's not an uppercase p planeswalker.
I'm gonna have to defer to someone else on that. I really am.
I don't know. I have not played enough Magic to know where the line is on that.
It says she has a planeswalker card, but anyway, I think we can move on.
No, I will email the CEO of Hasbro right now, and we'll figure this out. Just a second. All right, gotta check to see if the artists ever responded about. Nope, they're avoiding me. All right, next question. We've got a couple of minutes left for questions. Next question is from Feral Storm 201, and their question is, if speed formations are hard on the servers, can we just get an option that would let us save less frequency, perhaps just once closer to the reset point of the Modron core, rather than having to change all the characters?
Yeah, so this is actually one of the first things that we did when this was causing a problem. There are some caveats around this, and one of them, of course, is that when you get a chest, like from a boss, it does have to save to put that information on your account and get the data for that. So there are certain sort of key moments where things do have to save. Some issues around with Briv. I know we actually decided that because if you're skipping over those and we're not showing it, we can actually, after the fact, make that save and have that information added to your account. But that does mean that if you're in the play, or if you're in your play history in your journal looking at what records are showing there, those won't show up until you save. So I know there was that caveat. And of course this means if you're jumping along and then you go to quit and if for some reason it doesn't save, you could have lost some small number of areas. But I think I went over it with Peter and we kind of figured out a balance for, at least for Briv. I don't think it's caused a lot of sort of players reaching out asking about why things are just slightly out of sync, but it does cause things to end up just slightly out of sync for a small period of time by doing that. So it's kind of a trade-off. But yeah, certainly sort of optimizing the amount of the frequency of the saves is something that we have done. And it does potentially ask questions around if you just have a really fast speed formation and you are defeating the bosses and you are seeing the chests from the boss or the bags from the bosses, how we could possibly do that without actually making a save, which is actually turns out to be a really complicated problem because some of that calculations of what's in that depends on sort of factors that are live and with previous saves. Anyway, I won't go into the details, but yeah. I know that is something that we've
a lot of
at.
Technical stuff there.
Okay, next question.
I did get, I just want to interrupt, I did get a response back from the artists, or from our lead artist, and it looks like the problem isn't that Tatiana is shorter than Desmond. Well, that is a bit of a problem, but the actual problem is that Desmond is actually quite a bit taller than he should be. So we are going to nerf Desmond. Take that, Desmond.
Just cut him off at the knees.
Yeah, we're gonna take off his boots and not replace the art asset. He's just gonna hobble along on his knees from now on.
Which also removes his 2 feet slots.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question. Could you make it so this is from Karsh?
Oh, that was a good one.
Karshi. Can you make it so the free play in a time gate could push towards the Reach X Zone achievements for their associated events?
Yes. So this is a question that we get fairly often, normally in tickets, from people wondering why it doesn't work that way. And it is intended that the Reach Zone X achievements are only doable during the event. They're actually doable during the event for all of the champions in the same free play. It's just a event free play. It's not the specific champions event free play. So you can still get those achievements after the champions have been retired. You just have to wait for the event to come back around. So I don't think there's any plans right now to adjust that so that the achievements are doable in time gates as well. So yeah, if you just wait for the event to come back around, really, if you just get to area 275 in the event, you will just get all of them backwards and forwards. So yeah, that's what's going on with that.
Wait, and forwards, like next year's one too?
Next year's one, you'll just get, as soon as the event comes out, you'll already have credit for it, because that is the way that currently works. Maybe it won't always work that way, but that is. That is how it works.
Okay. Next question from Old Man Master. Can we get a spoiler on next week's content update?
I don't know. Let's see. What's next week's content update? Maybe if it's something I can spoil. Today, where is it here? Oh wow! Hey, next week's content update looks exciting. Oh man, yeah, next week's content update is going to be really cool. Unfortunately, I can't spoil anything because it's really cool. So yeah, you're definitely going to want to be around next Wednesday. And may I also say, you're definitely going to want to maybe do some Wild Beyond the Witchlight adventures. Yeah.
All right.
We got time for one more question.
Probably one or two.
Yeah,
one,
two more questions.
Oh,
we got to do the outro. Then we have to think up a hot mic thing on the fly.
We can always do that.
There's lots to do. Okay. Next question is from TG Nubus, who asks, "Can we get a shuffle feature in the Jukebox?" I almost said Jukebox.
Huh. I didn't realize the Jukebox didn't have a shuffle feature.
Does it really not have a shuffle? I've got the game open right here. Jukebox. It doesn't have a shuffle feature.
Well, I'm just gonna like ping Jarrett with that. I think he can add that right in.
Let's toss some more people into this bus.
It's not a. I'm just gonna ping him to say add it in. I wasn't gonna toss him under a bus or onto a bonfire or whatever else people were suggesting. And shovel him onto a bonfire with a pitchfork. One last question here, Justin.
Okay.
From Yoda ate my head. I get it.
Oh, that's too bad.
There are lots of icons used to indicate formation bonuses and status effects, but not a key to what the various ones mean. It took me a long time to realize that Tatjana's friend spot had a blue glow. Any chance we can get a hotkey to bring up a key for all icons that might appear on the current champion array?
Oi, oi, oi. Yeah, that sounds like a hard one.
So I'm going to pause for a second.
Yes, I know. I just saw that.
That's Elisa's office. That's not a restroom.
Elisa and Dexter's office back there.
Oh, yeah. She would not appreciate it if we used it for that. Answer the question.
In terms
Justin.
of formation bonus. So icons. I think we definitely could do better here. I'm not sure that that having a hotkey or something that brings up all the options is going to be like effective. Or I think we'll have to think about this one. Maybe we just need to be more descriptive in sort of the formation ability descriptions, so that it kind of says like, Tatiana picks a slot and highlights it with a blue glow or something like that. Part of the issue, I think, is sometimes the art doesn't necessarily get done until obviously the design gets done first, and then the art kind of mostly gets done, and then the implementation starts, and then the art gets finished. And so, we just have to sort of figure out how that would work to maybe call that out a little bit more.
All right. You're all out of time for an explanation on that.
No.
So
okay. Well, if we didn't get to your question this week, and there are a bunch of questions we didn't get to because we are slow, you will have another opportunity. We will hopefully be live again at this same time next week. Before we sign off, though, we'd like to thank our tireless mods. I believe this week it was... It's up here somewhere. It was Jay and Mars. Thanks, Jay and Mars. Jay and Mars are the guys who copy your questions into our question stock, ban people who ask us too much about Briv, and generally make things awesome. So thanks, guys.
And of course, thanks to all of you for hanging out, watching the stream, enjoying the game, and asking such wonderful questions. Without you, no one here would get to do what we do.
That's true. We'd have to do something else.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.
I managed to go the whole thing, I think, without coughing. At least not unmuted.